Jamie, thanks for joining us. We spoke about maybe getting together when you made your 100th appearance for Raith Rovers, but we knew 500 was kind of on the horizon, and we thought let's wait and make it a nice long piece. We're not only going to talk about your Rovers days, which are obviously of enormous significance and continued significance to us Rovers supporters, but we're going to look a wee bit broader across your career and your journey into goalkeeping. So firstly, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And secondly, thanks for your time. You've, I don't know if I've got you away for training a wee bit early. There's football noises coming from outside the back there. So
The joys, I'm a wee bit older now, so I can take a wee bit less time out in the training pitch. Look after myself a wee bit more.
Let's start with a wee bit of your footballing CV. 500 career games, as we know. In terms of Rovers, total appearances 104, 36 clean sheets.
It's not bad.
Happy with that?
I'm happy enough with that.
And where that puts
almost
you,
what, 1 in 3. So
it's good, isn't it? That's 1 in 3 is generally what goalkeepers have said across the years.
Yeah, that's what I've always. If I going into a season, I try and go for, if I can get a third of games, a clean sheets, I think you're having an alright season, and that's kind of the aim at the beginning of the season for me. So that's good to know that.
Happy with that, especially as we head into contract negotiations and looking to extend your stay.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's obviously as you get older, you kind of worry less about that and just enjoy it for what it is at the moment. And yeah, I just enjoy playing football.
I'm happy to give you some bargaining chips as well. Unlike your agent, I don't need a 10% or anything. Where do you stand in our all-time appearance list? There's a chronology that runs from Raith Rovers' first game, 1883, all the way through, and you can imagine how many thousands of players have wore the jerseys. You currently sit 162nd in the all-time appearance list, and 20th in terms of Raith Rovers goalkeepers appearance list. So the fact that we've got 20 goalies in that 162 surprised me, but it shows that we've got a long run in affection for our goalkeepers here.
No, that's good. That's surprising actually, like to be in that number, to be honest, as you say, for the total history. So it's it's pleasing, and obviously hopefully many more to come.
Absolutely. Let's start with your introduction to goalkeeping. Where did life between the sticks start?
From a local club, which, well, I'm from Bathgate in West Lothian, and I actually played, I started outfield for the first couple of years, and it was more actually just playing down the park with my friends that I used to enjoy going in goals. And then one day I was like, I actually prefer going in goals, so I joined Blackburn United Boys Club at the time when I think I was about 10 years old. So it started for there and kind of hit it off pretty well straight away, and kind of ended up getting picked up with St Johnstone later that actual first season, and went and trained with them. They're like on a Friday night through in Edinburgh at Meadowbank Stadium, and you know it was kind of all just kicked off of there.
Were you always going to be a goalkeeper?
No, as I say, I started off playing outfield, and I still enjoy playing outfield as well. It wasn't like I was adamant in being a striker or being, you know, a goalkeeper or whatever. I just enjoyed football, to be honest with you. As I say, I think I enjoyed the diving about down at the park with my friends, getting muddy and whatnot. I think that was always a positive for me, and it was something I enjoyed. And then I decided to take the goalkeeping further rather than trying to pursue the outfield places.
So there wasn't a moment where the clouds separated, the light came down, and he says, "I am a goalie."
No, not quite that. But yeah, as I say, it's something I've enjoyed for 10-year-old, and yeah, I'm kind of at that stage now. I've got 4 kids, but I've got 2 young boys that play football now, and I'm the opposite. I'm telling them don't be a goalie.
That's right, yeah.
So I think sometimes when you get to the professional game, it's probably the mental side of things. Like, yeah, it's tough being a goalkeeper. You know, I don't think people realise. Yeah, you're not involved as much, so you need to kind of mentally be aware at all times and try and focus at all times, knowing that you're not really going to be involved for large parts of the game. You're obviously closer to fans, and the closer you're to fans, sometimes the more abuse you get. So even that mental toughness and trying to drown everything out, and obviously the most obvious one is, you know, you can't hide your mistakes, can you? I think 99% of the time when you make a mistake, it's a goal and you're going to be chastised for it, and that's just the life of being a goalkeeper. So I suppose it's you feel like you're trying to protect your kids by telling them to do that. It has not worked, shall I let you know, because my eldest wants to be a goalkeeper, so my eldest son Noah, so we'll see how that goes. But as long as they enjoy it, like, that's all that matters. As I say, I love football, I love being a goalkeeper, and you know, I think that first and foremost, that's the most important thing, is doing something you love.
You say love being a goalkeeper. We're just chatting in the back of our draw against Ayr United, saved a penalty there, and you got your interview in full kit and gloves on the BBC, and there was a lovely Twitter post one of the local songwriters, David Lattle, had written. His post was along the lines of, I like to think of Jamie MacDonald always being in full kit just in case there's ever the need for a save breaks out. Are you driving the kids to school in your a Perry Bahalt goalie gloves?
I think my good friend as well, who runs Bahalt, Kevin McLeod, I think he would like that as well. You know, we always joke about when we do interviews and things, it's like, make sure you keep the gloves on and get the gloves in. So there is a standing joke there between us that we do that, so that is part of the reason why I have them on. I'm sure he'd love to see me driving about the car, dropping the kids off to school in the gloves, but unfortunately no, it's reserved for training and match days only. Growing
up as a kid, watching football, you know, we often expect that folks will support the team that's on their doorstep, etc. But your interest in football is a wee bit wider based, I guess, on your kind of goalkeeping hero. Yeah,
when I was younger, you know, the thing that was most accessible to me was Football Italia. Probably for a lot of 90s children, growing up in the 90s, that was what was on. You had your highlights programme on a Saturday, and you always had a live game on a Sunday afternoon. So for me, you know, that was what was most accessible. So I love watching Italian football, and at that time as well, Italian football was probably the best league in the world. Obviously now you've got the English Premier League, Spanish League, but at that time though, there were so many good clubs, and all the best players were going to Italy. And I loved, you know, Gianluca Pagliuca was, you know, he was one of my introductions to goalkeeping. He was an excellent goalkeeper. Also, to be honest, back home, I loved Andy Gorham as well. And then as I grew up, it became Iker Casillas. I always kind of like goalkeepers who I could look to, who were kind of similar in stature to myself. You know, they weren't the biggest. They were all fair, like 6 foot, 6'1". I think Gorham might have been 5'11" or whatever, maybe even smaller. But I kind of looked up to them because you could base your game in them more, you know, rather than, you know, again, I love, like, obviously recently, like your Buffons and Neuers and things, like, they're unbelievable goalkeepers, but I found it harder to associate with them because they're obviously a completely different style to me, as wonderful as they are. So I've always preferred, or always looked to the goalkeepers who I felt were similar in stature.
Have you felt you've had to work a bit harder?
Not work a bit hard, I think that's unfair to say. You learn to play the game differently, I suppose. You know, I've had to rely probably more on footwork, agility, reactions. You know, that I'd say probably be the strengths of my game. Maybe the weaknesses, you know, are cross balls and things like that. You know, it's not you can't rely on your reach for things. You have to always work your feet in to try and get in a position for saves, where obviously if you're 6'5", you can rely a lot more on just your reach. You might not need to move as much. You can rely on using your framework and things. So it's just different ways of goalkeeping, and you just learn differently. I think when you look at the modern day goalkeepers, they're all 6'4", 6'5", and can move their feet, and you know that. So that's why they're probably so good now as well. Like they're kind of hybrid models now almost.
Yeah, let's come to your senior career. I read some interesting stories about your debut and the time you wait for that and the kind of false start. How did it feel to finally get the gloves on and walk over the white line? Tell us the story behind that.
My debut, my first professional appearance was Queen of South v Partick Thistle. So I was, I think it was just coming up for 21, so I was 20. I think I was 21 in April, so my debut was in January. So it was my first loan spell. I'd been at Hearts since I was 14, 16 full time. Had patiently waited, played under 19s, going through playing reserve games, being in first team squads, never made my debut at Hearts, and probably had about 2 years where I'd promised that I would get out on loan. And because we always had plenty of goalkeepers that would come in, obviously at that time at Hearts with Romanoff, there was a lot of players that were in and out. So there was a few opportunities I had, but never ever quite materialised for one reason or another, whether it be an injury or the goalkeepers they did bring in not doing so well, which happened on a few occasions. So I ended up always having to kind of stay as a backup, but I finally got the opportunity, as I say, when I was 20. So it was a long time coming for me, I felt, because you know, I'd been promised it like 18 months, 2 years prior. So it was great. You know, it's so different playing under 19 football and even reserve football, which I think's missed now right enough, because you still had the opportunity to play against first team players at that stage. But no, it was great to play in a first team environment in front of a crowd where it meant something. You know, when I went to Queen's, I think we were bottom of the table at that point, and they had done a lot of business in January, to be fair to them, to obviously try and stay in the league. But you know, you see what it means to them. Like, they're maybe not getting a lot of money. You know, myself wasn't earning much then, and then all of a sudden you're earning maybe a week's wage by getting a win bonus or whatever, and it's a massive difference. And you're playing for that and for crowds and things like that. So it's a big change in your culture and the way you look at football, I suppose.
Your time at Queen's seems to be something that's looked back incredibly fondly by Queen of South supporters. You know, following around with RaithTV, I've seen you go back to all of your previous clubs in your Raith Rovers capacity, but the depth of warmth that you received there really kind of caught my attention. Yeah,
you know, I loved it there. It was a good 18 months. Obviously, I had that 6-month loan spell at the end of that season where we managed to stay up. I think we got to a quarter final, got beat by Hibs in the quarter final of the Scottish Cup, and finished, as I say, the season pretty well, and then went back the following season. And you know, I think for Queen's, we obviously got to the Scottish Cup final. The result of that, unfortunately, just narrowly lost out to Rangers. But you know, it was still a fantastic day and fantastic achievement for the club. You know, I think it was the first time in their history, and still the only time in their history, that they've been to the Scottish Cup final. So you know, as much as we didn't win it, it was great. See, even the following day, the fans, you know, lined the streets in Dumfries, and we still done like a mini bus tour and things, and they came to the stadium to welcome us back. So it was, you know, as much as we didn't win it, it was almost like we did, if you know what I mean. And you know, I think the fans appreciated that, and you know, the players equally.
An incredible journey. I mean, the semi-final stands out. I was here at Starks Park, kind of trying to catch it before our game, and it was remarkable. I think highest scoring cup semi-final.
4-3 against Aberdeen. It was a mad one. I think it was 1 each at half time, and then it was like 6 goals in the first 15 minutes of the second half, and it was just madness, to be honest. It was like a basketball game. The first half was probably a cagey affair, a goal a piece, but not really too much happening. Then obviously the second half just kind of blew up, and you know, the fact that we held on as well, you know, that was you know, I'll live with me forevermore. It was a great day, and you know, for me as well, it was my first taste of a proper big game.
Huge game.
You know, what it really meant to get to a cup final. I was very fortunate. I was part of a squad, the Hearts, when they won the 2006 Cup. I was a third choice then. You travel, so you see it, so you get to experience it, but it's a different experience travelling as a third choice, and you know, just kind of going along for the ride. You still feel like an outsider looking in, where you actually be a proper part of the team. To actually get to a cup final, you know, was great, and especially so early. Really, you know, I'm 20, coming up for, well, I was probably about 22 at this point, but you know, it's early for a goalkeeper, so to come so early in my career, was great, and it's probably held me in good stead for the rest of it.
Scottish Cup's kind of been a kind of touchstone across your career, isn't it? Something you go back to for the highs and the lows.
Yeah, it's probably the highest point in my career, and also one of the lowest points in my career, but that's football. That's the way it goes. You know, I say that to everybody. I'm very fortunate to have played in, I think, 5 cup finals now, with obviously the Challenge Cup last year. So you know, I'm very lucky that I've managed to do that. You know, there'll be a lot better players than me in their career that probably haven't been involved in one or not won one. So you know, I don't take it for granted, and you know, I just appreciate it, or enjoy the fact that, you know, and very thankful for the fact that I've managed to play in 3 Scottish Cup finals, a League Cup and a Challenge Cup now.
I'm going to ask you a question as we move to your time at Hearts. It's probably one that Hearts fans will be kind of zooming along and either getting a comfort blanket or a bit of popcorn. That time that you were there through the Romanoff era, from the outside as we looked on, it was as interesting as it was utterly bewildering. What was that like, and what are the kind of lasting memories you've got of it?
You know, it's as you say, it was a pretty mad time being at Hearts at that era. For me, it probably probably didn't affect me as much as it probably did others, to be honest, because at that point I wasn't really playing. I was obviously out loan to Queen of the South. I missed a lot then. I then came back from my loan spell and obviously kind of got promised, like I ended up signing a 3-year deal at Hearts, which I wasn't too sure about because I hadn't been given an opportunity, and I'd been promised stuff in the past, and I thought, by this time obviously Craig Gordon was away and things, so I thought, you know, there could be an opportunity here. And again, it was almost like a slow burner for me as well, like getting in. I played a few. I spent about 2 years kind of in and out the team, not playing some games, not playing others, and we chopped and changed a lot with the goalkeepers, but I always felt I never really got a proper run at it, and it took a good little while obviously to officially properly break into the team and be the number one. But I suppose that just summed up the whole Romanoff era. You know, as I say, there's probably a lot of worse stories with other people that had more dealings with Romanoff. Myself personally didn't really, you know, I probably wasn't that when he was there at that higher level until the end, where he really focused on you. So I was, as I say, I was probably more in the background of it all rather than being the, you know, the main storylines of a lot of the.
It does seem a kind of style of employment that I would imagine couldn't be further away from what you would respond to. Yeah, do
you know, it was just, there was a spell, you know, I think we had like 80 players in the books. You know, we had like a first team squad of 30, we had a reserve team squad of 30, and then you had another 20, you know, under 19s, and it was just madness, to be honest. And you know, there was a lot of good players there as well. You know, you could argue that he did a lot for Hearts, but obviously the way it turned out, it ended in a bit of a nightmare for the club and you know, a lot of the people involved. And it's good to see that, you know, the club now are thriving again, and it's a club that will always be close to my heart as well, because, you know, I was there from 14 years old, I think, until I was released, you know, at 27 or whatever it was. So it was a long time being part of that. You know, plenty of highs and lows there, but it was yeah, it was a big part of my life, you know, for long enough.
I remember probably what sums it up for me as a non-Hearts supporter is, you know, back probably about 15 years ago, we were doing a Rovers podcast, and John McGlynn was on one of our kind of hour-long specials, and he was telling us about how he ended up going from the training pitch to Vladimir's yacht. And one of the lads that we were doing it with kind of summed it up and says, it sounds like Monte Carlo to Monty Python. Yeah. And John kind of says, that's pretty decent. That's pretty close.
Yeah, I remember that. I think it was after the 2006, the first team squad all went for pre-season. They got a wee Brucey bonus, and I think in Monte Carlo, as you say, for a week before we went to Austria. I didn't get to go to Monte Carlo at that point, but I was very fortunate. I got to go to Austria and do all the hard work in the pre-season camp. And again, even there, it's like, you know, Romanoff would turn up at training and hit penalties into the goalies and things. Like you're trying to prepare like pre-season, working hard, and next thing he's coming over with his boots on, hit penalties for 5-10 minutes in the middle of training, and
that's sensational.
You know, it was just one of these weird and wonderful things that we do at times, and it was also one of the ones you're like, do you save it or do you know? So do you save it and think, oh, I'm not standing up to him, or do you let it in to get in his good sides?
What do you do?
I think at the start I used to let them in, but I think as time went on, I decided to stand up for myself a wee bit and make sure he didn't score.
It's probably some kind of psychological test that probably exactly runs parallel to what games you were getting to play in. And what
exactly.
We've always got to ground everything we do in Raith Rovers, and you know, we're a tight-knit bunch here from our volunteers through to our first team, but you must insist that if our owner turns up and insists on taking penalties into you, you are going to text me, aren't you? I will be here in a heartbeat with a camera.
I'd love to see it. Maybe the next time John's back over, you know, we could maybe set that up and see
maybe
how we go.
That's our cup final challenge, isn't it? Let's talk about the national team. We'll come back to some of your big moments, you know, in terms of play for Hearts as well. But let's talk about the national team. 10 under-21 call-ups. What were the key moments for yourself in amongst your under-21 games?
You know, it was something that was, you know, it's an honour to play with your country, any age group, any level. You know, I was very fortunate to be called up to an under-21 campaign, and it coincided with me roughly the same time when I started playing at Queen of the South, so it was good timing for me, it was me, Andy McNeil, and a boy called Chris Smith, who was at St Mirren at the time playing. And I actually went in probably not as the first choice. The way it worked out was, again, it just shows you how football works. You know, my debut was actually a friendly against Germany, and Andy McNeil played the first half and I played the second half, and I had a blinder. You know, it was just one of the days where, you know, I only played obviously a half, but we got beat 2-0 that night, and Andy kind of made a mistake for the first goal, and then the second half I came on, and like, they were changing the team regardless, but like it was just one of the days where, you know, there's 5 or 6 good saves in it, and, you know, it set me off well. But again, by the time I got to the competitive games, it was actually Chris Smith, because he was playing with St Mirren time, and I think they were potentially in the Premier League at that point, so he was actually number 1. He was the one getting the nod. I think it was Czech Republic we were playing, and he actually fell ill, or I think he got an injury in training the day before, so I got my break kind of through that. And then I ended up playing the rest of the the whole campaign. I got in. I think we won 1-0 that night against a decent Czech team. I'm sure it was at Falkirk Stadium.
Well, that was one of the things that really surprised me as I'm looking through the stats, because I thought, I wonder what stadiums James played at. I wonder if it's where you played abroad with the under-21s, with big stadiums and stuff. And I saw that your under-21 debut was at Grangemouth High Astro Pitch. According to the SFA.
Nah, it wasn't that. Definitely wasn't that.
Please tell me they've got something wrong and I can go back to them.
That is definitely not right. Not the 21s. The 21s, the debut was at Broadwood against Germany, because that was literally like about 2 weeks after I went on loan to Queen of the South, that game, because that was like around about middle of February. And then, as I say, the Czech game, I'm positive it was at Falkirk Stadium. Maybe no, that was a while ago now.
There may be officers in the background taking notes. They'll be firing an email away. We love to have one up.
Yeah, but as I say, so the rest, I ended up playing the whole of the campaign, and we just missed out. We had to go to Denmark to play, and it was, I think it was Aarhus Stadium. That was a lovely big stadium. We got beat 1-0, but I think we had to win that day to kind of get through. And it was, you know, it was a great Scotland team as well. You know, it was like the front three was Stephen A. Smith, Stephen Fletcher, Ross McCormick. You know, and you know the team was littered with other, you know, great players that, you know, there wasn't many of them that have probably not had a career.
Yeah,
I think
I was really struck by the number of players.
Yeah, like your Lewis Stevensons, things like that, Lee Wallace, Paul Dix, Gary Kenneth at the point, obviously. You played Scott Cuthbert. I'm trying to think, go through them all.
And a few Rovers,
Kevin MacDonald,
a few Rovers connections in there as well. I was just kind of looking through the name. You mentioned Andy McNeil, who played for Rovers, Ryan Conroy, Callum Elliott. You mentioned Stevenson, who's a Kirkcaldy lad.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was a lot of good players, and we were unfortunate. We just kind of fell at the last hurdle, unfortunately. But you know, that was you know, great to obviously be involved in. As I say, it probably done a lot for my confidence, because, you know, I just had went out and got in playing first team football, Queen of the South at championship level, and then, you know, a few weeks later the Scotland 21s call up happened, and as I say, and then the way it's all worked out, and getting to play a full campaign for your national team at under 21 level, you know, it was great.
And there was a bridge to the senior team. You were telling us as we're setting up, something I didn't know is that if you're not on the pitch you don't get a cap, but you get a to go with it. Yeah, so I a couple of times around about that time, you know, I'd went training with the first team, you know, just sometimes if they were needing a goalkeeper training, like when they're turning up to camps, if boys had games on Sundays or Mondays or whatever before they met with the first team, so there's a couple of times getting to train, so even that was, you know, a couple of great experiences. But then obviously much later when I was at Kilmarnock, I got my first official and only call up, you know, which was great to be involved in. And again, the way the games worked out, I think that was the Nation League qualifiers, which they beat Israel I think it was 4-0 in Albania we won, and then 3-2 in Israel, which taking them through to the playoffs, which we obviously ended up winning and getting to the Euros. So it was nice to be part of. Yeah, and it was you don't, as you say, you don't officially get capped unless you make an appearance, but you know, I've got my pendants at home and my jerseys as well. So, you know, it was a great experience, and obviously you're getting to rub shoulders with the best in the country, you know, like your Andy Robertsons, John McGinns and things like that. So, you know, again, it was another good experience, and you know, it was nice that I've had a call up as well in my career. Tell us about the best and the worst bits of being a goalie. I was really struck earlier when you were saying about you know, the stuff that you get verbally thrown at you for behind the goals, and there's the other side that you're the first point of contact when, you know, when we put one in the top corner for 30 yards and stuff. What's that like?
You know, sometimes it can be difficult. It can be a very lonely place being a goalkeeper, because obviously you're, as I say, there's probably 90% of the games away from you, or even when it's your half, you're maybe not actually physically doing anything. So there's that aspect to it. There's, as you say, there's the abuse side of it, but see, to be honest, it's something I've actually embraced and enjoyed, and I like having a bit of banter with away fans and things like that at times as well. You know, I think it's, as long as it's all taken in the way it should be, it can be good fun. Sometimes it's actually more difficult when it's your own fans, like when things aren't going well and, you know, you've got your own fans maybe having a go at you. That can be actually really difficult. That's probably more difficult than away fans having a go at you, because you know that's going to happen regardless. But there has been times when things aren't going well for the team you're actually playing for, and your own fans start getting on your back, and you know, there's not really much you can say or do, and you know, you just have to kind of try and block it out and get on with it, you know. And we know, like, it's like everybody, we all get frustrated, myself included, you know, when things aren't going well, but sometimes you just have to stick with it, and you know, hopefully you can get through it.
Are there times when you've not met your own standards in dealing with it, and is there times when you've particularly left the game thinking that was all good crack? Yeah,
probably more when you're younger. I think when you're younger, it's like anything, you learn to build up a tolerance, or you know, when you're younger you do probably let things affect you a little bit more, you react more. You know, I remember probably a couple of times at Hearts when I first broke into the team, and again, things maybe weren't quite happening for me on the pitch, and your own fans are sometimes saying things, and you know, I've reacted and back sometimes and got in a spat with a fan, which, you know, doesn't help anybody. It doesn't look good in yourself, it doesn't look good in the club in a whole, but you learn to deal with that, and I suppose that's part of the learning curve, as well as and also just growing up and maturing as a person. It's probably like that in any walk of life, you know, you learn to control your emotions more and deal with things, and you know, and then there's other times where, as I say, you have a bit of banter with the fans as well, which I think again they can appreciate. It's not that you're not concentrating the game, you pick and choose when to do it, you know, you're not sitting doing it when the ball's in play and you're sitting chatting away, you know, you wait for a stoppage in play and you maybe have a bit of banter, and as I say, as long as it's all taken in the right way, then, you know, it makes it fun. As I say, I play football because I enjoy it, and you know, probably more so now than ever, you know, it's more of a business for a lot of people now. When you look at it, you know, people look at it to go and, I think people go into football now to make money rather than actually just the fun and enjoyment of it. You know, I think that's been lost a little bit. So for me, you know, that's what I love. I still love it, and I do enjoy it, and I still find it fun at times.
Tell me about the wider life as a football player. You know, in the work that we've done over the years and decades, we see that the kind of glamour of underneath the floodlights on a Friday night, and you know, the South Stand are singing. You don't have to scratch very deep to see how challenging a life he's actually lead in terms of short-term contracts, injuries, maintaining focus, form issues, competition. Everybody wants those gloves, that jersey. Tell us about how you just keep going and maintain your positivity.
I think, yeah, as I say, I think the love of the game is the biggest thing. The other thing is, I suppose over the years as well, you know, the Premier League is well documented, and the amount of money that goes into the English Premier League, and that's what everybody sees, and I think everybody thinks that's football. That's actually not football. That's probably 1% of football. The other 99% is everybody else. You know, you can earn a good living regardless, like, for what you do. Like, at the end of the day, it's, as I say, it's a dream to play to be a football player. You know, I've been very fortunate to do this my whole working career so far, but it's also not as glamorous as what it's always made out to be. As you say, you know, there still is a lot of sacrifice. You know, it's great you train in the morning, you do maybe a bit of gym in the afternoon, you're home early, whatever, that's great, but you know, the amount of things that you, like, your weekends you give up, the social aspects, you know, you don't have much of a social life with your friends and family. You know, it's difficult, like the amount of weddings I've missed and stag do's and things like with friends, because football, you know, obviously comes first. And people don't say, even things now with myself being a family man, you know, like things with the children. It was great. The last 2 Friday games have been excellent for me. I've had the weekends. I've managed to take my son to his football on a Saturday and a Sunday, which you don't always have the opportunity to do that. So it's nice being able to just be there as a dad first and foremost. You know, instead of relying on other people helping you out all the time, and where you can actually help out. So there's little bits and bobs that you kind of you take for granted, and then there's other parts you obviously appreciate that, you know, it is a good life overall.
Tell me about some of the people who've been key to your success, both out with the game and inside the game. I mean, one that obviously kind of caught my attention, or all of our attention really recently, was Billy Thompson passing away. I think would have been a key figure. You know, who is it that has got you to where you are, and who keeps motivating you? I was watching you out there, and Robbie doesn't go easy on you and Andy either. So tell us a wee bit about some of the folks that are so key.
Do you know what? Everybody you kind of come across in football's obviously probably been, you know, a help in one way or another. I think that's the beauty of football. You meet so many different people, different thoughts, different ways of thinking, and you know, some work for you, some don't. You obviously, you talk about Billy. You know, I had a great 5 years at Kilmarnock, and with Billy, and you know, he's a great man, and he'll be sorely missed. But he was somebody I could really go on with, because probably very similar characters. He wasn't. He's quite a quiet man. Said his piece when he said, you know, when he said it, you listened. He wouldn't talk often. Liked a bit of a lad. Didn't take life too seriously. Not that it wasn't professional, but you know, I think I'm a bit like that myself. I try not to be too serious all the time, because again, I go back to the enjoyment of football, and I think you can lose that sometimes by being too kind of involved in it. And then again, it's not that you're not being professional, it's just sometimes you have to just take it for what it is, and enjoy it for what it is. And you know, Billy was definitely that kind of character as well. And then you go back to younger days, you know, worked with a lot of people like Peter Latchford, Jim Stewart, things like that. Hearts, you know, they were kind of first experience to go coaches at Hearts. You know, how you had good footballing careers yourself. Obviously getting to work alongside great goalkeepers, and obviously I still speak to him now, Big Craig Gordon, you know, who's, you know, when I was younger and coming into Hearts, he was a young boy who just broke in the team of Cell, and watching him, and I suppose idolising him a little, and wanting to try and follow in his footsteps as well. And you know, just people like that who you come across throughout the years, and you know, it's, as I say, even manage different managers. Like we go back to even John McGlynn. You know, a big reason why I'm here is John McGlynn. You know, he was my youth coach at Hearts, and you know, I've got a lot of time for John. You know, he's a good man, a great football coach as well, and you know, he is probably the reason why I'm here. You know, it wasn't something, I don't mean it wasn't something I was over considered, but when I spoke to John, you know, it was a large part of coming here was him, and you know, I'm very thankful and grateful for that. You know, and I've loved my time here. So you know, you meet a lot of people in football who all kind of help you in different ways. As I say, I think the fact that I've worked with so many different managers, coaches over the years, it just gives you a broader horizon of football, that it's not all this way or that way. You need to adapt. I think that's the thing with not just football, probably life. You need to adapt to the situations you're in. And then from a personal point of view, you've obviously, you know, my mum and dad have always been there for me. Even when you go back to the stage I'm at now, with my own kids, is driving about here, there, everywhere, taking them to games. You know, you don't appreciate that when you're younger. And I suppose everybody's probably in the same boat. You don't appreciate these things because you don't think about it, and it's not until you get older. And then obviously my wife has been a massive support, and you know, she's been there majority of my career now, and you know, she's a very positive person as well, and sometimes you're down, she'll lift you back up, and vice versa. So yeah, you know, I've got a good base at home from that, and you know, that also helps.
It's great to see them all here on Friday night, and they got to see you saving a penalty. Maybe not the penalty that's going to grab the attention when people look back at your career as I do here, although your career's got a long way to go still. The standout penalty save, Harry Kane, he was alright, but didn't get the better of you?
No,
from the spot.
it's one of the ones. I keep saying it's a much better. Well, don't get me wrong, it was great at the time because it was against Tottenham Hotspur, down at White Hart Lane. So that was brilliant. It was his debut that night, so it wasn't quite as good as it is probably now. The stats obviously got a lot better for me over the years than it was at the time. But it was a great. It was a great night, at that point. I'll go back to the Hearts days. I wasn't really playing at that point, and fair play to Pal Sergio, gave the boys that, obviously the Tottenham came and hammered us 5-0 or something at Tynecastle, so we decided to give the boys on the fringes a game, and we went down 0-0, still against a very good Tottenham side, maybe not as strong as your Gareth Bales and Defoe's in the first leg, but it was still a good side, and it was a great experience for all of us. And obviously for myself, and the thing I took for that game that year was, it wasn't the penalty save, it was actually we were the only away team to keep a clean sheet at White Hart Lane that season. So that was my favourite start for that. Now I tell folk I've saved Harry Kane's penalty rather than that now, though, right enough. But that was a big moment in my career, because it was only a few months later I actually finally made the #1 jersey my own.
And you've done a great job of steering me away from actually considering how the actual penalty came about, but we'll let that one rest.
I'm just thankful I never got red carded.
What about, as a non-Heart supporter, but somebody that loves Scottish football, we watch all these European games and you want to see teams do really well. The game at Anfield just was quite a remarkable watch, and all but for the last couple of minutes would have been something even more special. As I say, obviously for Hearts fans, but more so for the whole of Scotland. John McGlynn doing his stuff there. I look back at that Liverpool team just last night. It's ridiculous. That
was good because we obviously played them in the first leg at Tynecastle. We got beat, just narrowly got beat 1-0. I think it was our own goal as well. My daughter was actually born, my first was born the night before, and was actually panicking that I was going to miss it. And I remember John phoned me, he was like, everything going to be alright? And I was like, it's alright, the baby's been born, thankfully, the day before. So I never had much sleep, and I'm sure my pre-match was a pot noodle and a banana, because I came straight from the hospital, straight home for a quick pot noodle and then straight to Tynecastle. But I think Liverpool that night, they didn't play maybe as strong a squad as they could. I think they thought they were going to, they still had, like, Reina played, Charlie Adam had just went there, was playing and things like that, but I think they thought they were going to come and kind of turn us over, and obviously they struggled, and it was a kind of like 70th minute own goal that won it for them. So when we got to the second leg, I think they appreciated what we did in the first leg and played a much stronger squad. It was like Steven Gerrard, Luis Suarez, Skerto and all that played the second leg, and
Gerrard, Sterling, Henderson.
Yeah, exactly. So it was I think we obviously we gave them a bit of a fright in the first leg that they decided, but we played brilliant. We went down there with a game plan, and we were, I think, 4 minutes away from properly executing it and taking the tie into extra time. But it was still a fantastic achievement and a fantastic night. Obviously Anfield's one of the, it was one for the bucket list. If you go, what's one of the stadiums you'd love to play at, Anfield was definitely up there. And there's a nice thing the Cop End doing. So it was before the game. Craig Gordon he played at Sunderland, obviously, at that point, and he was saying when you go in front of the Cop End, he was like, clap them. And I'm like, aye, very good. I was like, I'm not going to. I was like, don't clap him. He said, I'm being deadly serious. He says, it's like a thing they do with away team goalkeepers. You go, you applaud them. He says they'll applaud you back. And I'm like, very good. So first half goes by, you get to the second half, and I'm running up, and I'm like, did I do this? And I'm like, right. So I just start. And then, so I started just like that, a bit shyly, and next thing you know, the whole Cop End up on their feet and they're applauding you, and it was, it's, what an experience. I don't know why they do it, but it's such a a very respectful thing, and it was lovely. It was really a nice thing to obviously to happen, and as I say, going 1-0 up as well, and the Hearts fans, you know, it was great, and it was a great experience.
Thanks for sharing that. That's one of these things that I've heard kind of through the ages, and I wondered if it was about a kind of footballing myth that maybe Liverpool fans put out there, because we all like taking a gild the lily, but that's lovely here.
Yeah, and even at the end of the game as well, do you know what, fair play to the Liverpool fans, they all kind of stayed at the end of the game, and actually, well, majority of them did, and you know, they clapped the full team off, which again was a nice touching gesture. You know, I think they appreciated what we put into both legs. You know, the disparity in finances and things like that, especially at that time, you know, would have been massive, and so they appreciated the effort that we put into the game and had a go at them as well. And it wasn't just a case of defend for life. You know, we try to have a go against them.
Any regrets across your career? I was wondering about maybe a call for Graham Potter that you didn't take forward.
There's not many. You know, I think life's too short for regrets. I'm very much one of the people. You know, what happens. But yeah, maybe one or two in the football side of things. You know, as much as I've been delighted, you know, to say 500 appearances in Scottish football. You know, there was always that little bit of me that sometimes fancied trying either down in England or abroad, and I've had opportunities, but you know, for one reason or another, you know, I've stayed up in Scotland. As you allude to, you know, there was a chance to go to Sweden when I'd left Hearts. It was initially Billy Reid had phoned me because he had just went over with Graham Potter to Östersunds, who I think they were in the 2nd division in Sweden at the time, but they were really making a lot of waves. Obviously a bit of money getting put into them and trying to get into the top division and whatnot. And I remember speaking to Billy and going, oh, that sounds like speaking to my wife. At that point we only had Dara, the eldest child at that point, and spoke to her about it, and she was like, look, if you want to do it, it's like we'll make it work. Dara, I think, was still only about 3, so she wasn't at school or anything, so it would have been an easy enough transition. We went to Disneyland Paris on holiday, and this is obviously I'd just been released in Hearts and things, so I spoke to Billy, and he was like, look, I'll get Graham to phone you in the next kind of week, and see, well, after you've had a wee think about it and see where you're at. And I was like, right, okay. So Graham Potter phones me, and I'm like, yeah, sounds really good and things, and he's like, right. And I was like, I've spoke to the wife, so I quite fancy it. And I was like, I'm just in Paris. And I was like, right, well, phone me when you get back from Paris. And it's like, we can discuss it more then. I was like, just go and enjoy your holiday. I was like, brilliant, no problem. And then go to Paris, come back, and my wife finds out that we're pregnant with our 2nd child, Noah. So at that point, I was like, look, she was still quite, you know, happy for if I wanted to do it, but I think I made the correct decision and decided to stay at home. You know, it's a lot to take on 2 young children, and maybe not quite being there at that time. You know, my wife works full time herself and things, so it was a big ask. So yeah, that's maybe one little regret, but not in a bad way. Maybe more so now, because obviously down at Chelsea, you always think, well, could have been 9th choice at Chelsea, earning a fortune maybe.
I mean, I just like the notion that Chelsea TV are chatting with their manager and saying, was there ever a signing that got away from you? And he says, you know, I never tied in Jamie MacDonald, I've regretted it since.
Well, you never know if he's maybe, I if he's looking, I wouldn't do that.
Let's come to your time at Rovers. We mentioned about your stats at the beginning, where you fit in and so forth. Loads of high points across your time here, and they keep coming. And over the other side of the South Queensferry crossing, they like to talk about a 5-1 scoreline that's apparently meaningful. It's meaningless at this side because it's another 5-1 game that stands out here. What was that? That was a game that John McGlynn said if he could live one game in his life again, it would be that one. What was it like for you playing in a night where even beyond the scoreline, the football was sublime?
It was. Do you know what? I suppose there's a bit of frustration with it because unfortunately it was during COVID. Yeah. And we didn't get to share it with the fans. Like I'd love to have had a full house in that game. Like that's the one thing missing from that game that just doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't sit well with me. But in terms of performance and things for the boys that night and the football we played was brilliant. You know, 5-1 against your rivals in any game is, you know, great, but I think the way we did it was even more so like, you know, we controlled that full game. The football we played, you know, if anybody watching that for the outside was just watching a game with two teams and, you know, had seen that, they would have thought that was, and not knowing who the teams were and what league it was, you know, they would have probably put that, I honestly think they would put that up there as like a top European game, because I think the way we played that night was so good. We moved the ball so well, the work rate of the boy, just everything, it just clicked that night. You know, you get games like that sometimes, and that was definitely one of them. And as I say, I think the only disappointing thing about it was that we couldn't do it in front of the fans.
I remember after the game, when the Dunfermline media representatives kind of shaking their hands saying fair play, and I always remember his line says, "Yous could have really embarrassed us tonight."
Yeah, I think when we got to kind of the last 20-30 minutes, you know, we were just knocking the ball about for fun. You know, it was, as I say, the performance that night with everybody, you know, everybody was just on it that night, and it was just one of the nights where everything clicked. You know, some of the goals in the game were fantastic as well. I'm sure Vonnie scored, you know, a couple, and as Vonnie does, and you know, it was just a great night for everyone involved in the football club. As I say, I think just the disappointing thing again was just, unfortunately, it was during COVID.
I've got to ask you to tell us a wee bit about another COVID game, and it'll be a game that will, you know, if you manage to lodge this as the best Jamie MacDonald performance from my head, you're going to put an incredible performance in the future. And it was a game at Tynecastle. It was in the back of a COVID outbreak across the squad. Barely had a team to put together. I went back and watched the highlights, as I do occasionally. I'm still bewildered with some of the saves that you made.
It was an unbelievable night, obviously personally and collectively. I think we had a 45-minute training session on was it the Friday? Was it a Saturday? Was it a Saturday game?
Saturday game.
It was a Saturday game, so it was a 45-minute session on a Friday, just to get the boys moving, because I think out of about the 18 boys in the squad or whatever, I think 12 of us had COVID and 12 of us had symptoms. You know, I remember, you know, we obviously had that 10-day, whatever it was at the time, isolation period, and I remember just being at home and like literally sitting like went through the full family and literally getting up to empty a dishwasher or whatever and being knackered. And then, because I think we were all hoping that they were going to rearrange the game. We were like, oh, surely they're going to rearrange it. Like, we've not trained, blah blah blah. We've got 12 boys that have actually had it and had symptoms. It wasn't a case of nobody had symptoms. Like, I think most boys were dead on their feet, and then we obviously, I think, got to the Thursday and like, nah, they're not changing it, and you're like, and it was just unbelievable, to be honest. But to go there and then win 3-2 as well was just unbelievable. And to be fair, again, the performance for the performance the whole game, but the first half, we dominated Hearts, and I think anybody, you know, nobody could argue that with that. You know, the way we played that first half, it was great. We gave them, you know, the run around that first half. I don't know if they maybe took us for granted because of our situation, maybe we weren't quite switched on themselves, but we were excellent. And you know, the only thing in that game that kind of killed us was probably COVID, and you know, boys were naive. Myself, I'd very rarely cramp, because obviously, but I remember about 60 minutes I had to go kick and I felt my calf going. You know, I'm asking Blair to come with bottles of fluids and gels and things just to kind of see out the last half hour, because your body was just knackered, you were just physically and emotionally tired, and what a result.
I remember after the game, Neil and I catching up with you for the interview, and it's possibly, I think I'm accurate in saying it's the only time we've said to a player, do you want to sit down to do the interview? I've genuinely never seen, it's not unusual, you know, to see yourselves as athletes just put so much into a game that you look drained. But I've never seen a player look as broken as you did after a game. Maybe the joy found you the next day, but that particular night.
No, it was one of them. Obviously there was joy there, believe me, but I think, you know, everybody in that changing room at the end, it was just out on their feet. You know, the work rate, especially, you know, as I say, I'm fortunate I didn't need to run about, but the outfielders that night, you know, every single one of them, you know, the work rate they put in that game was outstanding. You know, it's the one thing about the club since I've been here, you know, I don't think you could ever fault us for not trying and for not working hard. You know, that's every game I think the boys give their all. You know, it's the quality's maybe not always there at times, and things don't always go for you at times, but I think the one thing you can't fault this team for my time here is the work rate. And you know, that game definitely probably personified that season as well. You know, just the amount they put in it, and what a massive result as well to go to Tynecastle and win against obviously a very good Hearts team.
Almost kind of coming full circle from your debut to your most recent final, Queen of the South Challenge Cup final, was not only great to pick up the silverware, but it did also seem to be a bit of a marker of supporters reconnecting with the club after a difficult time, and there was an outpouring of joy there that was much needed.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it's well documented the months leading up to it, but yeah, it was probably needed at the time. You know, it was just we'll need to together, get, as you say, just reconnect with everybody, fans, players, you know, the full lot. We just needed that to kind of draw a line under things and move on. And you know, it was great. And you know, there's not many. Like, people will even ask me, obviously, they say, oh, you've won, but that's equally as important. You know, you don't get to cup finals every day, as I said that to, you know, some of the younger boys that are maybe involved, and it's like, you never know. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's not their only chance to play in cup finals and things, but the reality is that it might be. I think, obviously, apart from us now, who we're going into it for that's the third time in a row, but I think before that, yeah, that was one of the third time the club had won, or was it the second time when they won it last year? Was that the third time we'd won the challenge?
Technically third time.
Technically third, because of the share. Yeah, that's what it was. So, you know, and it's been going for what, a good 40 years.
We take the technical one as well.
Yeah, of course take everything you get in football, but you know, it's not easy. There's a lot of clubs who have been in and out the Championship to the League Two that have not won it, in big clubs in there, and they've had a go. Believe me, they've had a go at it, and it's not happened for them. So you take every cup final that's going, and
another one on the horizon as well,
and definitely
weeks away.
Exactly, which is great. And again, it's great for the club. You know, it's been a great couple of weeks. Get to the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. With Rangers to look forward to, and obviously the Challenge Cup final to look forward to again. And you know, hopefully it can drive us to aim for these playoffs as well.
Brilliant. I was trying to think of just some of the little things that I see around about the club in terms of asking questions. You know, there's the obvious ones about this match, but being in and around the place, and we do wee bits and bobs together. I was trying to think what supporters like to hear about, what could we share about Jamie that they might not have seen. I was thinking of a couple of things that we've done together that just genuinely were just such a thrill for us. One of them that stands out for myself, I just thought captured how kind of easy going you were and your sense of fun. We're delivering hampers at Christmas time, we're going round the houses, guy opens the door, puts his walking frame to one side, casts his eye over you and says, "Is that Jamie MacDonald that played for the Hearts?" And then immediately tells he's a Hibs fan. Your reply, without missing a beat, was, "Come on mate, are we and you going to end up rolling about in the grass here?" And I just loved it, because it's that bit about the connection between how do you balance life outside of that big patch of grass out there. Is that humour done you well?
Yeah, I think you need to have it. You know, as I say, you can take life too seriously sometimes, especially in football. You know, you can really take it too seriously sometimes. You know, I think you can get caught up in the emotion of it all. You know, it's a very emotional thing, football, between the fans and things, and you know, players. You know, I get emotional myself. You know, I get in a game, I'll shout and I'll moan, and you know, I'll go into the changing room, and at times I'm very calm and I'll not say anything. There's other times I'll shout at people and, you know, shout at myself, and it is that you go through the ringer with football. But yeah, I've always tried to have that bit of humour, maybe a bit dry sometimes, but I do try and have it. You know, yeah, as I say, it goes back to just trying to enjoy it for what it is, and you know, just being appreciative for what you do. You know, as I say, I'm very fortunate that I've managed to have a football career for 20 years now, since I've left school at 16, and you know, I know I'm lucky, and I know there'd be, you know, thousands of other people would love to be in my situation, and do what I do. So I'm always very wary of that, and as I say, I appreciate that, but then also try to have fun with it as well, because as I say, I think you can take it too serious sometimes, and then you stop enjoying it as much.
You know, I share exactly what you're saying there, but for the other side of the camera, I know I'm lucky, and I know I'm in a privileged position. I know it's hard work at times, and you're giving up, obviously, all the RaithTVs on a voluntary basis, but there are little moments where I get brought down to earth and say, you know, you can do great things here. We had a lovely wee example where we had the two wee girls, homemade signs, can I have your left glove, can I have your right glove? And you know, the social media folks, we picked it up and had a wee word with, no bother, we'll get that sorted. So you were in match warm-up mode, so you know, you were busy. So I ran around with the gloves, and you just happened to look round, and when I seen the level of excitement of these wee girls who were jumping up and down, hugely thrilled, it just brings you down to earth, and you think, this is what football's about. Yeah,
definitely. You know, it's something I try to do. Sometimes I think I make a rod from one back because of the amount of requests I get for my gloves. But it's nice, you know, that's what you want. You want the kids coming in. That's, you know, that's the future of a football club as well. It's not just about you. You know, they're all involved in it as well. You're all in it together, and it's, you know, it's you try and give as much back as you can. Or at least I try to give as much back as I can. You know, it's it's difficult if there's only so much you can do, but just small things like that, just to, you know, pique an interest or whatever, keep them coming back as well. And you know, as I say, you forget, you just think, like, you just go about normally, and you think, you don't realise how much people look up to you at times. You do forget that because you get wrapped up in your own stuff, but you know, you see the kids that come and things, and you know, they look up to you. So I think it's important to be, you know, a good role model, and you know, make sure you acknowledge them as well.
My question is, what's next for yourself in terms of ambitions? But I'm going to throw a wee couple of details in there just to get you thinking. Hamish McAlpine played for us when he was 40, and I've sat in that commentary booth when Tony Bullock pulled up injured and Bobby Geddes came off the bench aged 49.
Oof. That's maybe a push 49.
So what's next for Jamie MacDonald?
I just want to play for as long as I possibly can, as long as I'm feeling good, which I am right now, and as long as someone's willing to have me. You know, that's the other thing, sometimes it can get taken out your own hands, but right now I feel good. I feel I can still perform at a good level, and I just want to play as long as I can. You know, I've hit 500, why not go for 600? You know, I think that's the way I've always looked at things. Never looked too far ahead, but also never obviously looked like I'm going to give up. I always want to keep going, and as long as I feel fit and able, then you know, I want to play football. As I say, I'm very privileged, and you know, it's something I love.
Do you have a handle on how popular you are with Raith Rovers supporters? The classic away day trip or sitting in the pub question is, pick the best 11 you've seen, and your name's thrown in there with Murray McDermott, Davy McGurn, Scott Thompson, Gordon Arthur. Are you aware of that?
No, not at all. I'm not a big in social media or that either. So like I kind of, social media is a gift and a curse, I think, at times. You know, there's a lot of great things social media brings, but it's also, I think there's a lot of stuff in it, and I just rather, I don't want to get too high. I've always been like, never get too high, never get too low, just try and stay in the straight and narrow and the middle ground. And so yeah, I don't know that, and it's nice to hear, you know, that's you know, there's a lot of things, as I say, I don't really, I kind of keep myself to myself a little bit out with football, but yeah, it's always, look, it's always nice to hear things like that.
Great. Final question, and it's probably the best question I've got because it's not mine. One of the things that we've been doing over the last kind of 18 months, season and a half, is that the mascots come out, they get to warm up and stuff, but they now get a wee tour of RaithTV, we get them the headsets on, they get commentating a goal, all this sort of stuff. We get a kick out of it as well. Always ask the kids, who's your favourite player, what's this, what's that? So I asked one wee kid, he's about 5, who's your favourite player? Jamie MacDonald. And I says, why is that? And his answer stuck with me, because he says, in a brilliant Kirkcaldy accent, he says, because he can do the scorpio kick. and I said to him, scorpio kick? And then I figured out, I think that's like a scorpion kick, but better. So my question for this wee 5-year-old is, when we're going to see that during the game?
Maybe when it's my very last game, there's no chance I'll have the bottle to do that in a game. I don't think. Obviously, I done it. Was it this year actually? Was it this season?
Yeah. Got it in the social media.
I think it was this season, wasn't it?
We'll put that up alongside the game, sure.
You know, it's something that used to always be my party trick at the end of training with boys. As long as the ball's right, I've always done it. And that's the first time I've done it in years, and it was just the ball was perfect. I thought, I'm doing this. Obviously, as you get older as well, you lose your flexibility a wee bit, so I was a wee bit worried for myself. But yeah, I nailed it that day, and obviously the fact that we had the camera at training as well, it kind of blew up a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't expect me to do it in a game just yet. Maybe when it's time to hang up the gloves, then maybe I'll have the balls to maybe try it in a game, but I can't see it.
Brilliant. Jamie, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you. It's even more of a pleasure to watch you playing for my club, our club.
Thank you.
It's great to see you with the badge in your chest, and I hope we see it for a long time to come.
Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.